part of the presentation or have to leave, we will be recording this. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So today we're going to be talking about behavior change. So as Sarah said, if you have questions during the presentation today, please type them into your chat box. So I'm Cynthia Nelson, and my contact information is here on this page. I've worked in pollution prevention for almost 2 years now. Before coming to environmental services, I worked for years in the fields of education and agriculture. I have a degree in science and environmental education from Cornell University, and when I'm not working, I'm most often out hiking with my husband and my dog. So I work in pollution prevention. Why am I here talking to you about changing behavior? Pollution prevention is, at its very heart, it's about behavior change. It's me bringing a travel mug or a reusable water bottle instead of getting a disposable one. But why am I talking to you about behavior change? Very often in our jobs, we ask people to make changes, but we seldom give people tools to accomplish this. So I have some questions for you. Are any of you parents? How about, do you live with any other human beings? Or do you come in contact with people in a regular work day? And have you ever wanted to change the behavior of any of these people? So the basic principles we're going to talk about today apply to all kinds of human relationships, but today we're going to apply them to your professional work. My goal today is to give you tools to help you change behaviors so that when you ask people to change, you are more effective and that you see more results to your work. So I want to know what compliance issues you want your clients to do. So this is a time when you can use your chat box feature, or if you feel like you'd rather speak up. I want to be able to apply the principles we talked about to your specific situations, to your needs. So I need to have some of the specific situations you'd like changed. For example, are people not in compliance because they're not keeping records? They don't update their records. I want to know about that. So Sarah will let me know what comes in the chat box if we have some specific things come in. So go ahead and do them. Sarah, did you want to open up in case people wanted to say something, or?
Right now, we've decided to leave the chat box, but so far no one has. Oh, yes. I got one from Linnell. Yes, people do not maintain required records.
Okay.
There's another one. We want them to recycle more materials from their homes and their businesses.
Great. Thank you. And if there are others, Sarah, good.
I got a few more.
Great.
Not reading the permit to identify permit requirements. That's a big one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. People don't do their quarterly leak inspections. That is true too.
Okay. So we'll talk about some of those. Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. If you have others, feel free to send them in, and Sarah, you can just cut in and let me know what they are. Okay. So there are two parts, two aspects of change that we need to keep in mind. We can change people and we can change things, and they work together. Sometimes if you change a thing, you don't need to change people. So for example, if there's a problem with people leaving the lights on in an unoccupied room and your goal is to save energy, you can install occupancy sensors. That occupancy sensor will shut those lights off when no one's in there, and you won't have to have the people change things. In some of the other situations, like recycling, the increased recycling that came in our chat box, thank you for that. There are ways you can change your recycling containers or motivate people to recycle more. So there's an interplay between things and people. So keep that in mind as we talk about behavior change. But today we'll talk primarily about tools to change the behavior of people. So let's talk about how we're going to do this. I want you to think about some ways that you ask people to change. You don't need to tell me, but just think about how you do that. Have you written a letter to someone telling them what they need to do to be in compliance? And have they done it? Or have you given out a fact sheet and just given them information and have they complied? Unfortunately, knowing something does not necessarily mean there'll be action. when we know something, it doesn't necessarily mean we'll do it. If information or being taught something changed behavior, then no, we would all eat more fresh vegetables, no one would smoke, and kids would always wear helmets when they're riding their bikes. So why do we give more information? Why do we teach when we want a behavior to change if it's not effective? Well, giving information is common. It's easy, or it's relatively easy, to just distribute information. It's also relatively inexpensive, but it's not always effective. Oftentimes it's a wasted effort. That said, however, there are some circumstances when giving information is very effective at changing behaviors. Those three circumstances are when the information's new. Say you have a new rule and you contact all your clients and say, hey, this is new, I need you to do this. That's very effective. Or if there's a significant revision, it's like there's new information. And again, giving that information would be very effective. Or else, if it's been a long time since the information has been given. I'm over 50, so I use forgetting that as an excuse because I forget things. But I've realized that people under 50 forget things as well. So if the information needed for the desired behavior hasn't been given in a while, sometimes giving that information again is a very effective thing. So we're going to talk later on about when you need to give information, how to present it effectively. So if giving information, just informing people, doesn't work, what does? Knowing why you should do something motivates a lot of people to change. People need to understand why you're asking them to do this. Change is hard. They need to know that their future benefit is greater than the cost. It is seldom enough to say, just do it because I told you so. Think back to the veggies. Just because we all know we should eat more vegetables, but just because we know that we should doesn't mean that we are doing it. Or just because we know we should eat more vegetables and why we should eat more vegetables doesn't mean we're doing it. So, how many of you wore bell bottoms? How about this one? Brightly colored leggings, or skinny jeans, or this is my personal favorite, brightly colored biking outfits. So why? Why did you wear these things? Is it because you look really, really good in them? No. I wore bell bottoms when I was in school because it was the thing to do. Everyone was wearing them. It was the social norm. Or let's look at this. If I were introduced to you for the first time and I reached out my hand and said to you, hi, my name is Cynthia, what would you do? You would reach out, take my hand and shake it and tell me your name. Why? This is a social norm. In our society, professional people, when they meet, shake hands and exchange names. Social norms are a very powerful tool of change. Social norms guide behavior and acceptable group conduct. We are all hesitant to do something unless we know that other people are doing it too. Nobody wants to think they're weird. They want to know what other people are doing. When we just give information to someone, when we give them a fact sheet and they don't know if they're the first ones doing that behavior, they're reluctant to change. But when we share with someone a case study showing how someone else has done it successfully, or we pair them with a mentor, or another social norming strategy, we show people that others have changed their behavior, and they can too. Social norms are how people think certain behaviors are viewed by the people around them. Norms are the beliefs that people often share about what others are doing and what people may approve of or disapprove. So, for example, when we assume everyone recycles or no one obeys the speed limit on the interstate, we're relying on norms. If someone avoids littering in front of other people because they think those people would disapprove, they're conforming to a normative behavior. A social norm, even if it's incorrect, can influence behaviors. So let's talk about how this works with some of your clients. If people assume that no one does the inspection or no one writes the information in the logbook, what are they going to do? They're not going to do that behavior either. The good news is that it's possible to create a culture in the workplace that, just like shaking hands, it's just the way we do it here. So yeah, we all record in the logbook. That's just what we do here. We all recycle. That's just the way we do it here. So it's possible to make those changes. Okay, let's review. So what is going to work? People need to know what to do. They need information. People need to know why they're doing it. And people need to know that other people are doing it. So a combination of these three things together are very effective in changing behavior. What's not effective is simply telling people to do it. Simply giving them the information or saying, well, do it because I told you to. It would be nice, but it's not effective. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, type it in the chat box if you have questions. Let's go on. We're going to make a plan of action to influence people's behavior. This is only a guide. Just like when you're driving from this point from work to this place where I want to go hiking, there's a couple different ways I could use to get there. If there was a big accident on this highway, I would take a longer way around. So there's advantages and disadvantages to different ways of getting somewhere. So do that with our action plan. Use it as a guide. Use what works for your situation. Okay, we have 6 steps to our action plan. Where are we going? We're going to clearly define the final objective. Identify our target audience. Who is going there? We're going to get informed. What are we going to do? Then we'll look at identifying what barriers there are to making the change. That's what's keeping us from getting there. And then we'll develop strategies to reach your audience. So how are we actually practically going to do this? And then we'll develop a method to measure effectiveness. How did we do? We will spend most of our time talking about practical strategies to reach your audience. Okay, the first thing, in order to get to where you're going, you need to know where you're headed. Goals build momentum. You can gauge your progress towards a goal. You want your goals to be specific and measurable. In this case, my goal was to get from work to a specific parking area in the White Mountains to climb a specific trail. I wasn't just headed to the White Mountains in general. I knew where I was going. When you have a specific goal, you can see how far you've come and how far you have to go. In the case of your clients, you can have a specific goal. I would like to see, your goal could be to accurately record all the information in the logbook for, say, 6 months. That's a specific goal. Next, we're going to look at, you want to look at whose behavior it is you want to change. Who is your target audience? In this bell curve, it shows these, I went back. I am having technical difficulties trying to go backwards. I went too far. Here we go. There we are. There we are. Sorry about that. In our bell curve, these few people right here are your early adopters. They're the first people to make a change, or the few people who are doing it. And then at this end of the bell curve, there's a few people who just aren't going to change. You can spend all your time trying to get these people to do what you want them to. It's probably not a good use of your time. But all these people in the middle, these are the people who are waiting to see what other people are doing. And if you concentrate your efforts on those people in the middle, you'll see a lot of, it will be very effective. So these people at the early part, the first early adopters, those are going to be the people you want to be your mentors, and you're going to write the case studies with. Okay, so you're going to look at who your target audience is. Then you're going to get informed. You want to learn as much as you can about what needs to happen, about whatever process it is that's being changed. You seek out any information you need. You don't need to be the expert. One of the most important things to learn about is your audience. You want to know who they are. You want to understand what motivates them. One of the best ways to get to know your audience is get them involved, get them involved in planning whatever project you're doing. When we take the time to understand our audience's social norms, we can use this information to provide programs that are really valuable to them and are more likely to result in the intended outcome. Norms are proven to be good predictors of what people intend to do and ultimately how they'll act. Okay, so for example, you're having a Super Bowl party. We have a social norm in our country about what beverage you serve at a Super Bowl party. So you're going to buy beer. What happens if you learn about the people who are coming and you realize that 95% of them are members of Alcoholics Anonymous? It's not effective for you to buy beer in that case. They're not going to want that. So in the case of your clients, what motivates them? Does recognition motivate them? Well, then a pizza party might not be an effective thing. So learn about your audience. We want to offer a reward that's appropriate for them. All right. So we've clearly defined what behavior change you want to make. You know whose behavior it is you want to change. You've learned about the people that you want to change. Now it's time to look at the barriers. What is keeping people from doing the desired behavior? Does it cost too much? Is it inconvenient? Is it just a perception? Is there really not a problem, but they don't realize that? Do people think it's too hard? Do they even recognize that there's a problem at all? So in this picture, there's an obvious problem, and it's an easy one to solve. The container's just not big enough. So in our, one of the things that you guys sent in, one of the problems, the record keeping. Is the log, whatever they need to record the records on, is that in a convenient location? Do they have something to write with if it's pen and paper? If it's an iPad, do they have a stylus? Is it charged? So look at the barriers, the things that are keeping people from actually doing it. It could be that it's a quick, easy fix. I worked in a situation once. I was managing a group of people in a greenhouse, and routinely I would not have reports turned into me. And it turns out that the people didn't have a pencil in the greenhouse with them. So we attached pencils to everyone's clipboard, and suddenly we had real success getting the reports in. It was a really easy fix. Okay, so we're going to look at barriers. Okay, strategies. Our strategies are our tools. We're going to look at what tools. We'll spend a lot of time talking about tools in a minute when we're done talking about the 6 steps for our action plan. But strategies are not one size fits all. You're going to use what ones work for you. Remember, these are tools. When I go to hang a picture on the wall, what tools would I use? I'd use a hammer. I'd use a nail or some kind of a hook. I might use a level or a yardstick to measure where it goes. Would I use a blowtorch to hang a picture on the wall? No. Why not? Because it's not the right tool. It's not effective. And notice I used more than one tool. Could I use just a hammer? Yeah, possibly. But sometimes a level is really helpful. So using more than one tool is usually the most effective. We'll look more in depth at strategies in just a minute. So the last thing on our action plan is to evaluate. You want to celebrate your successes, and you want to communicate the results. You want to let everybody know how well you're doing. You also want to look at what you could improve or do differently. Involve your audience in the evaluation, and then you can go back to the beginning and look at what else you might want to change. Okay. We're going to talk more in depth about the strategies we employ. What I'm going to do is just introduce them to you very briefly, and we'll watch a short video. We'll talk about the strategies they use to change behaviors in the video, and then we'll go more in depth into our strategies. Okay? The strategies we're going to talk about are provide information, develop partners, identify role models, get involved, ask for a commitment, provide feedback, look for low-hanging fruit, make it easy, give incentives, and use prompts. Okay, here comes our video. Let me make sure I can get it to play here for you. Let me know if you can't hear it. Yep. I don't know what happened there. Sorry. I'm going to start this again. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what happened. Alrighty. Did you notice they clearly stated their objective, which was to get more people to use the stairs? And then at the end, they evaluated. 66% more people used the stairs. So to me, one of the most interesting things is there are no instructions. There's no written piece of paper that says, we'd like you to do this. There's no prompts. There's no anything. They made it fun and easy for people to make the change. And when they did it, so there was immediate feedback. When you stepped on a stair, it made noise. And did you notice there were people that were on the stairs, they motioned for their friends to come? People saw it working and they went, oh, I want to do this too. So I know in our workplaces, we can't install these cool stairs to make a change happen, but we can apply those same principles to our different situations at work. Okay, let's talk about our first tool, giving information. When you need to give information, we want to give it effectively. We want it to be vivid. We want it to be memorable. We want it to be something your audience can relate to. We want it to be specific, what we want them to do. There was a study done to try to get people to weatherize their homes, to seal up cracks around doors and windows. So they sent teams of people into homes and they measured the space, the cracks around doors and windows. And they presented a report to the homeowner and said, you know, you have a crack under your door, it's 1/2 inch by 22 inches, and you need to weather strip that. And you have a crack around your window of this size, and you need to take care of that. It didn't make any difference. No one weather stripped, no one weatherized, there was no change in behavior. So what they did was they presented the exact same information, the amount of holes they had. They presented that to the homeowner in a different manner. They sent them the same information in a report that said, if you added up all the cracks around your doors and windows, it's like you have a hole in the side of your house the size of a basketball. And people changed. So the same information presented in a different way can be more effective. You want to state things in terms of loss rather than gain. How many of you have dealt with a real estate agent? Notice they always state things in terms of loss. If you don't put an offer in on that house today, you might lose it. rather than if you put an offer in today, you will get it. Or an insurance agent, they say, if you don't buy this insurance product, you could lose your whatever. You want to tell things as a story, like a case study. And remember, people are more likely to be persuaded by an emotional image than logic. They're more likely to remember emotion. That's why you see so many pictures of kittens and puppies or cute little babies. So remember, when you need to present information, and you almost always do, you want to do it effectively. Your second tool is to develop partners. You want to get other people on board with whatever you're doing. You can form a green team. You can use already existing organizations or community groups to be part of this. One of the most important people to get on board is someone in management. This is the results of a survey we did in a class of hazardous waste coordinators. We asked them what was the most difficult roadblock to keep them from implementing energy efficiency projects. And notice what they said. 95% of them right here said lack of management support. So how do you get somebody from management on board? Well, one of the best ways is to present a business case, preferably with a positive financial change. Or you can mention a fear of loss as well. If you are not in compliance, you might lose your company's image. So again, you want to get people on board, develop partners. You want to identify role models. You want to find a couple of people who have made the change, the early adopters. A few people in a group will typically adopt innovative ideas and behaviors first, and then spread them through the group. Behavior modeling is much more powerful than providing information. You want to share personal success stories and arrange for people to meet people who are already doing it. Use case studies. You also want to make sure your sources are credible. Remember, people are more apt to listen to someone they know. Social interactions really provide a strong motivation to change, and information travels through social networks. You want to be involved, and you want to get other people involved. How many of you have ever watched a soccer game on TV? You're watching somebody come down the field, they've got the ball, they kick it towards the goal, it hits the goalpost and it bounces off and does not go in the goal. You're sitting at home and you slap the arm of your chair and you go, oh, that was so stupid. The goal was wide open and he missed it. If, however, you're part of the team down on the field, somebody's coming up and slapping you on the back and saying, wow, you know, that was such a good shot. You gave it all you had. It was a long way to kick it and you were really, really close. I know it didn't get in, but it was good. Spectators become critics. People who are involved are part of the team and they support you. So you want to have people involved so they're not standing back and being critical. Also, when people are involved, it's the first step to making a commitment. And when people make a commitment, they're more likely to act. So another tool is asking for a commitment. Small commitments lead to bigger actions. For example, have you ever been at the grocery store and you're checking out and they say, would you like to donate $1 to whatever cause? And you put your name on a piece of paper and they stick it up on the front window of the grocery store. They're not really looking for the $58 they're going to get from people that day. What they're looking for is a small commitment. Will you give $1? So that when that organization mails you a letter in a month or 6 weeks, you're more likely to give a bigger amount. There are a lot of organizations that understand that small commitments lead to bigger ones. For example, Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't commit to not drinking for the rest of your life. You commit to not drinking for this day. Or if you can't commit to not drinking for a day, not drinking for this 1 hour. Or Weight Watchers. You commit to 12 weeks. You don't commit to being good the rest of your life. You commit to a 12-week stretch. So asking for commitment works best when the behavior is clearly stated. We want you to commit to, would you commit to making sure that the log, the inspection log, is filled out every week for the next 6 months? It's relatively convenient to do. For the example of the giving $1 in the grocery store, you're in the grocery store already. Or in the instance of the log is right there. So it's convenient to do the behavior. The pledge is both written and public. And again, in the grocery store, it's written, you've signed your name on that piece of paper and they've put it up on the front window. It's made freely, and the person can choose what they're committing to. Now, in the case of a compliance issue, you are never giving the person the option to not comply. This is like when you ask your child, would you like to wear the red t-shirt or the blue t-shirt? You never give them the option of not wearing a t-shirt. So you can give them some choices though. Would you like to commit to filling out the log perfectly for 10 weeks or 12 weeks? Or would you like to fill out the log on Mondays or Fridays? Or would you like to fill it out the beginning of your day or the end of your day? And then the person can commit to whatever they've chosen, but you've given them some free choice. And then reminding people of the commitment helps maintain change. Do you have a newsletter that you send out that says, hey, remember, we're in the middle of this 12-week goal that we're perfectly filling out our logs? Or in the case of the dollar at the grocery store, every time you go in the grocery store, you see that commitment up there. Perhaps there's a bulletin board at your company where you have people sign, so people are reminded of the commitment, but that helps to maintain the change. Okay, we're almost done with our tools here. Feedback. When we provide feedback, it's a very useful tool of change. Remember the stairs? They had immediate feedback. You stepped on the stair and it made noise. These devices here that record your speed are one of the most effective ways of getting people to slow down, because not only does it provide immediate feedback, it provides comparative feedback. Feedback is only useful when it's in close proximity time and space-wise to the action. Like for the stairs, you stepped on it and you had an immediate feedback. Here, you drive up to this sign and you see the person ahead of you is going 23 miles an hour. The person ahead of him was going 17 miles an hour. You drive up and you're going 38 miles an hour. What are you going to do? Everybody else is going slow, so are you. You're going to slow down. Or over here, this photo is the dashboard of a new car. And it provides feedback in real time right here. It says how many miles an hour you're getting for fuel efficiency, or miles per gallon you're getting, I'm sorry. We couldn't figure out a way to make the car drive while we were taking the photo, so it's at 0 right now. But one of the big jumps in fuel efficiency is through material science and innovation with the technical aspects of a car, but also applying social science to driving has been very valuable. In this case, the driver can see in real time that when they're going 85 miles an hour, they're not getting the same fuel efficiency as when they're going 55 miles an hour. So it's enabled, that feedback has enabled the drivers to be much more fuel efficient. So feedback can be very useful. Low-hanging fruit. When you look at this tree, what would be the first fruit you would pick? What would be the first apples you'd take? These ones down at the bottom, right? They're easy to reach. You'd pick the easy stuff first. You're going to do the same thing when you're looking at behavior change. You want to do the easy stuff first, just like the stairs. It was easy. You want to make changes that are the most important and easiest to change. So there's 3 criteria you should look at, or you could look at: effectiveness, implementality, and cost. Do the easy stuff first. If you've already done the easy things, but time has passed, look again. For example, on this tree, if you come back to it in a year, what's going to happen? There's going to be more fruit at the bottom. Or for your company, say you've already switched out incandescent bulbs to compact fluorescents, and that was a number of years ago. Well, if you're looking at energy efficiency, come back to that now. Maybe they should all be swapped out to LED bulbs. And again, that would be an easy change to make. Make it easy. Next to this copier are bins for putting paper to recycle. Putting recycling containers next to any place that there's a trash can makes it easy for people to recycle, and it increases that behavior. Again, remember the musical stairs. It was easy to use the stairs. Or let's think of our record-keeping example again. Make it easy to fill out that logbook. Okay, incentives can be very effective for getting people to change. When deposits were put on beverage containers, suddenly the recycling rates skyrocketed because people now had the deposit they got back, a financial incentive to recycle. But you need to use incentives carefully because oftentimes the behavior stops when the incentive stops. Food is also a great incentive. If I were doing this class with you face-to-face, anytime anybody answered a question or they gave me a good suggestion, I would give you chocolate because food is an incredible incentive to get people to talk. And then that way we increase the amount of interaction between the class, and that's very valuable. You all have really good ideas, and I wish you could be sharing them with each other in this situation. So food is a really good incentive. Most people will answer a question, so they get a triple chocolate Kit Kat. There's a business in New Hampshire that found a great way to incentivize recycling. So this business generated hazardous waste, and some of the hazardous waste had lead in it that could be recycled. But in order to recycle that lead waste, it had to be separated out from the rest of the hazardous waste. The company could save a lot of money on hazardous waste fees, and they could get some money back from the recycling of this lead waste. So they decided to incentivize their employees for separating it out so they could get every little bit of lead recycled. So what they did was all the money they generated from recycling the lead waste went to an employee fund. And that fund provided pizza parties for the employees. They used that money to install an exercise room and buy exercise equipment for the employees to use at work. So that was an excellent incentive. They've been doing that for a number of years, and they continue to have extremely high recycling rates due to that incentivization. Recognition can be a really good incentive. Again, do you have a newsletter? Can you publish the names of people who've been 100% compliant in filling out their logbooks or whatever record keeping they need to do? So again, think how you can incentivize people. All right, our last one is prompts. Prompts are very useful tools when the action desired is a simple one and it's easily forgotten, like filling out a logbook. Prompts need to be specific to the action you want. A general prompt is not effective. So in this prompt here where it says save the juice when not in use, that's not an effective prompt. But in this prompt it says specifically what they want you to do. Are you the last one here? Turn me off. Thank you. And then this prompt is one of my very favorites. It's on the outside of our building, and it's reminding people, it tells specifically what they want you to do. Use the manual doors if you can. If your hands aren't full, if you're not in a wheelchair, and you can open the manual door, we want you to use them. It tells you not only what they want you to do, but why. Please help save energy by using the manual doors. Most of us forget that every time you go through an electric door, an automatic door, you have used energy. So again, this is a reminder. In a class I was teaching, somebody suggested that if the behavior they want to change is people aren't closing containers, they put a photograph or a picture of the boss on the inside of the container lid. So when they closed the lid, they made the boss disappear. So you can have funny prompts as well. That can be very effective. And you want to have the prompt in a spot that makes a difference. For example, when you go into the grocery store, in the parking lot is a sign that says, "Did you remember your reusable bags?" If that same sign were at the checkout, it wouldn't be as useful because when you're at the checkout, you're never going to go back out to your car to get your reusable bags. Just like at work, if the prompt is on the door on your way out and it says, "Did you remember to fill out the inspection log?" People are not going to turn around on their way out and come back in and do it. You need the prompt to be someplace where where it's effective, where people will see it. Okay, we're going to wrap up here with a video. And it doesn't play well on this, so I am going to close this out. And oops, I'm going to not do that. I'm going to close this out. Oh, that's not what I want to do either. And shoot, that's what I want to do. And I'm going to go to my video and play this. There we go. This is a nice summary of what we've talked about, and then I'll show you the last slide and we'll answer any questions, okay? There we go.
How many of you have checked your email today? Come on, raise your hands. How many of you are checking it right now? And how about finances? Anybody check that today? Credit card, investment account? How about this week? Now, how about your household energy use? Anybody check that today? This week? Last week? Few energy geeks spread out across the room. It's good to see you guys. But the rest of us, this is a room filled with people who are passionate about the future of this planet, and even we aren't paying attention to the energy use that's driving climate change. The woman in the photo with me is Harriet. We met her on our first family vacation. Harriet's paying attention to her energy use, and she is decidedly not an energy geek. This is the story of how Harriet came to pay attention. This is coal, most common source of electricity on the planet. And there's enough energy in this coal to light this bulb for more than a year. But unfortunately, between here and here, most of that energy is lost to things like transmission leakage and heat. In fact, only 10% ends up as light. So this coal will last a little bit more than a month. If you wanted to light this bulb for a year, you'd need this much coal. The bad news here is that for every unit of energy we use, we waste 9. That means there's good news, because for every unit of energy we save the other 9. So the question is, how can we get the people in this room and across the globe to start paying attention to the energy we're using and start wasting less of it? The answer comes from a behavioral science experiment that was run one hot summer 10 years ago and only 90 miles from here in San Marcos, California. Graduate students put signs on every door in a neighborhood asking people to turn off their air conditioning and turn on their fans. 1/4 of the homes received a message that said, "Did you know you could save $54 a month this summer? Turn off your air conditioning, turn on your fans." Another group got an environmental message, and still a third group got a message about being good citizens, preventing blackouts. Most people guess that money-saving message worked best of all. In fact, none of these messages worked. They had zero impact on energy consumption. It was as if the grad students hadn't shown up at all. But there was a fourth message. And this message simply said, when surveyed, 77% of your neighbors said that they turn off their air conditioning and turn on their fans. Please join them, turn off your air conditioning and turn on your fans. And wouldn't you know it, they did. The people who received this message showed a marked decrease in energy consumption simply by being told what their neighbors were doing. So what does this tell us? Well, if something is inconvenient, even if we believe in it, moral suasion, financial incentives don't do much to move us. But social pressure, that's powerful stuff. And harnessed correctly, it can be a powerful force for good. In fact, it already is. Inspired by this insight, my friend Dan Yates and I started a company called O-Power. We built software and partnered with utility companies who wanted to help their customers save energy. We deliver personalized home energy reports that show people how their consumption compares to their neighbors in similar-sized homes. Just like those effective door hangers, we have people comparing themselves to their neighbors. And then we give everyone targeted recommendations to help them save. We started with paper, we moved to a mobile application, web, and now even a controllable thermostat. And for the last 5 years, we've been running the largest behavioral science experiment in the world. And it's working. Ordinary homeowners and renters have saved more than $250 million on their energy bills, and we're just getting started. This year alone, in partnership with more than 80 utilities in 6 countries, we're going to generate another 2 terawatt-hours of electricity savings. Now, the energy geeks in the room know 2 terawatt-hours, but for the rest of us, 2 terawatt-hours is more than enough energy to power every home in St. Louis and Salt Lake City combined for more than a year. 2 terawatt-hours, it's roughly half what the US solar industry produced last year. And 2 terawatt-hours, in terms of coal, we need to burn 34 of these wheelbarrows every minute around the clock every day for an entire year to get 2 terawatt hours of electricity. And we're not burning anything, we're just motivating people to pay attention and change their behavior. But we're just one company, and this is just scratching the surface. 20% of the electricity in homes is wasted. And when I say wasted, I don't mean that people have inefficient light bulbs. They may. I mean, we leave the lights on in empty rooms, and we leave the air conditioning on when nobody's home. That's $40 billion a year wasted on electricity that does not contribute to our well-being, but does contribute to climate change. That's 40 billion with a B. Every year in the US alone, that's half our coal usage right there. Now, thankfully, some of the world's best material scientists are looking to replace coal with sustainable resources like these. And this is both fantastic and essential. But the most overlooked resource to get us to a sustainable energy future, it isn't on this slide. It's in this room. It's you, and it's me. And we can harness this resource with no new material science, simply by applying behavioral science. We can do it today, we know it works, and it will save us money right away. So what are we waiting for? Well, in most places, utility regulation hasn't changed much since Thomas Edison. Utilities are still rewarded when their customers waste energy. They ought to be rewarded for helping their customers save it. But this story is much more than about household energy use. Take a look at the Prius. It's efficient not only because Toyota invested in material science, but because they invested in behavioral science. The dashboard that shows drivers how much energy they're saving in real time makes former speed demons drive more like cautious grandmothers. Which brings us back to Harriet. We met her on our first family vacation. She came over to meet my young daughter, and she was tickled to learn that my daughter's name is also Harriet. She asked me what I did for a living, and I told her I work with utilities to help people save energy. It was then that her eyes lit up. She looked at me and she said, "You're exactly the person I need to talk to. You see, 2 weeks ago, my husband and I got a letter in the mail from our utility. It told us we were using twice as much energy as our neighbors." And for the last 2 weeks, all we can think about, talk about, and even argue about is what we should be doing to save energy. We did everything that letter told us to do, and still I know there must be more. Now I'm here with a genuine expert. Tell me, what should I do to save energy? There are many experts who can help answer Harriet's question. My goal is to make sure we are all asking it. Thank you.
All right. Let me get back to this. There we go. So that's the end. On this page is a website for Tools of Change, which is the home of the community-based social marketing, and a lot of these principles come from their program. And then also the book that Sarah referenced at the beginning, which is Switch, an excellent book, a really fun read about behavior change. So Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you. Any questions?
If anybody has any questions, you can throw it in the chat, or we can try to unmute people if anybody has any questions.
Comments?
I did get some comments in the chat that someone did like the funny suggestion with the boss's picture. And we did, a couple people liked the videos.
Aren't they great?
Does anyone else have any questions? All right, then we're gonna close. Oh wait, I got one more. Wonderful presentation. Do you partner to do more to present to state agencies?
I am not a social scientist. I simply have years of educational experience. And I'm happy to give this presentation as needed, but just get in touch and we can talk.
I do know that Cynthia she has different versions of the behavioral change based on the audience, because didn't you just do one for wastewater treatment?
Yes, that's right. So I have given the same presentation. We tailor it for solid waste operators and hazardous waste operators. We use examples from everyone's different field, how it can apply to their situation. So yes, I have tailored it to different agencies. So yes, thank you.
Again, appreciate the presentation, especially the examples, super info. It's perfect. All right, so we are about at our time. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next promotion, thank you, Cynthia, for volunteering to present at this. I had heard her speak at a different presentation for the hazardous waste coordinators, and I was like, oh, I need to bring you onto our group. You need to hear this message. So thank you so much. And